Hello and welcome back to another monthly reading journal video. I read 10 books in August and as usual I added them to my journal in multiple sessions, so this session we are adding the first 4. Adding these books to my start of journal pages, including marking off some anticipated releases that I now own before colouring in the bookshelf. Every time I see this first full page of books read, I feel so satisfied. I started 2 new series this session, however I'm planning on finishing Chicago Ruthless this month, so I'm only adding the Wolves of Ruin series to my series tracker and marking books 2 and 3 as not released this year. Again, no new countries, so moving straight to pages in pixels. It's getting more and more satisfying to look at as we progress in the year, and I still haven't missed a day read yet. After some time of deliberation, I was able to mark off Brother's Best Friend on my romance trope bingo thanks to Joey and Max. I've already read 2 from my TBR, Look at Me Go. This time I actually completed each book in the calendar one by one. This definitely makes completing this page a bit slower doing it this method, and you'll see that I change it back up next time. I've decided this month to keep trying the 4 books per spread with decoration, so I'm just quickly showing you how I set up this layout. As I am not as used to this layout as my previous 6 per spread one, I do make a mistake here and put the core pile section in before sticking down the star rating. Frustrating, but not the end of the world, so I just stuck in the stars below the core pile and added in the stars to the other 3 sections so I didn't forget again. The first book of the month, Diabound, is the first book in Sable Sorensen's Wolves of Ruin series. In a world where the elite warriors are bonded to wolves, Meryn finds herself fighting for her life in the bonding trials to do what she has to do to find her kidnapped sister. I really did love the premise of this fantasy world, however there were a couple of plot twists that were very obvious but weren't officially revealed until like 91% of the way through the book. However, that didn't stop me from enjoying the book and the series premise overall, and definitely will continue with the next when it's released, giving this one 4 stars. Next, I started the Chicago Ruthless series by Sadie Kincaid with Dante. This is an interconnected standalone series following the Moretti siblings, who are Chicago's mafia family, and their quest to find love. Dante meets Kat when he kidnaps her as payment for the debts her brother owes his family, and would you look at that, suddenly they are in love. It unfortunately did start with a relationship I hate, where they just have sex instead of communicating about their issues, however it did improve slightly once a specific trope was introduced. Overall it wasn't terrible, and the main series plot was interesting enough to make me want to continue, so 3.75 stars. I then read a translated literary fiction by Japanese writer Maya Mochizuki, The Full Moon Coffee Shop. This is a sort of magical realism premise where in this world there is a coffee shop run by astrologically minded talking cats of normal and human sizes that will appear when a person needs it most in their life. It is split into multiple parts, with each focusing on one of 4 adults who seem to have lost their way in life, and the cats consult their personal star charts and provide wisdom that helps them continue on. This is an easy read with some well-written philosophical points from the cats, however it did bug me a little that the humans would then repeat a point and make it very literal rather than allowing the reader to interpret what the cats were saying in their own way for their own lives. Because of that, I couldn't give it full marks, but I did love it enough to give it 4.75 stars after I fixed my mistakes. The last book for this session is book 2 of Chicago Ruthless, Joey. This book follows the overall plot from closely after the epilogue of Dante in the timeline, and follows the younger sister Joey and Dante's best friend and almost brother, Max. Both are attracted to each other, however they know the Moretti brothers would not approve, so Max always shuts down Joey's advances until one day at a club where he just doesn't anymore. Chaos ensues, both in the romance and overall plot, and I enjoyed both parts a lot more than Dante, giving it 4 stars overall. Spoiler warning, as I'm about to show a close-up for my written reviews, but this is how the page turned out. I'll be back next session with more books and new stationery to play with. I've been super busy with work this month, so the end of the month is the next and last session for this video. I'm now at 80 out of 120 books for the year, but the rest of my goals are not going great. But I did read 2 more of my 25 in 2025, so I get to mark them off. And also there's spoilers for the reviews later to what I rated these 2. I also marked a few more off of my release radar that I now own, or have on Kindle Unlimited. Getting up to 80 books for the year means I have completed another shelf on the bookshelf tracker. While it's still very much yellow and red, which is annoying for the aesthetic, it is still satisfying to look at. I had quite a few very large books that I read in this part of the month, so I only got 6 done and hit my minimum to be on track for my yearly reading goal. But considering I was also busy with work, this was not a terrible thing to do. I also remembered to mark off the books that were in August, just so I know which ones are from which month. Thanks to finally reading The Swordcatcher and Shadow Man being released, I got to mark off 2 books on my series tracker. I also added 2 more series, Fae and Alchemy by Callie Hart and Moonfall by Sarah A. Parker. Brimstone is actually due to come out in November of this year, so I also added it to my release radar so I don't forget it. The second book in Moonfall, however, isn't due until 2026. Also thanks to Sarah A. Parker, I get to mark off another country on my world map. While she does currently live in Queensland, she is originally from New Zealand, so I'm counting it. With the end of August, I am on an 8-month streak of reading every day. With this streak, I don't have a specific number of pages I must hit, mostly because I typically hate not finishing a chapter, so it's never really a tiny amount like 1 or 2, but I think the smallest page number of a day so far has been 11. Then trying my hardest to mark off more on my romance trope bingo. I was a bit liberal with these 2, but gave One Night Only to Keres and Friends to Lovers to Shadow Man. They weren't hard tropes in these books, but they did have similar themes. I also got to mark off a hard letter in my alphabet challenge thanks to Quicksilver. I was really focused on finishing this month's TBR, especially because these books have been on my physical TBR all year, so I'm happy that I read through all of them. As you can see, Quicksilver took me a whole week to finish, which is quite a long time for me, but I did also work over 50 hours that week, so it's understandable. The next week I really focused on reading so that I could get to 10 books for August. Skipping past the setup of this review spread as I've already showed it in this video. Each time I set up this spread, I am trying to figure out the most efficient way to do it, so you will see me jumping around a bit compared to the last session. On to the book, The Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare, which is book 1 of the Chronicles of Castellane. It is a dual POV fantasy about Cal, an orphan who is taken by the royal family as a body double for the prince, and Lynn, a woman who is a part of an ostracised community that retains a small amount of magical ability. There is unrest going on in the kingdom and an underground group they get involved with, and things devolve into chaos. I have read Cassandra Clare for about 15 years now, and it was interesting to read something that 1, wasn't Shadowhunters based, and 2, very much was written for a more mature audience, even though there wasn't actually like outright smut in it. I did have some new stationery that arrived the previous week, so I'm trying to use a lot of it here to get more better themed decoration for each book, choosing a red-headed woman to represent Lynn. The plot of this was quite slow with a lot of world building, and I did listen to a few chapters via audiobook, which made the writing a bit more confusing to follow, but I did enjoy how it was setting up the series as a whole, so I gave it 3.75 stars. I then went back to Chicago Ruthless with Lorenzo. This book follows the oldest sibling Lorenzo, who has lost the love of his life a few years ago, and Kat from book one's cousin Mia, who has run from her abusive husband to the safety of their home. It started off as casual sex and really felt like it remained that way, with the plot lasting about 5 pages and then the rest was sex and dead wife guilt. Despite the amount of times Mia stated she understood he would always love Anya, he would constantly pull away and break her heart when things got too real for him. Because of that, I gave it only 3.25 stars. I then took a break from Chicago Ruthless and read Quicksilver next by Kelly Hart. Saris is a human woman who lives in a very poor neighbourhood in her kingdom where she gets 6 ounces of contaminated water to drink per day and has to steal to survive and help her brother. When at the mercy of the immortal queen for her transgressions, Saris meets Kingfisher and is transported to the Fey realm that she inadvertently opened herself. She's then at the mercy of Feykind, who she was brought up to be told were unforgiving monsters, and is forced to help them with their own centuries-long war. This is your sort of typical enemies to lovers type Fey fantasy, however the premise and ideas within felt new and not repetitive to me, so I really enjoyed it and gave it 4.5 stars. I then decided to finish Chicago Ruthless with Kerez. Kerez is an illegitimate child of the father of the Moretti siblings who had a traumatic childhood after her and her mother were sold into trafficking. I can't say much more as it is about things you learn in the overall plot of this series, but Kerez uses the Moretti bodyguards Ace and Romeo to get closer, and boy do they get close. Insta-love MMF where the men had already been dating for a few years with the plot ending like 75% through, 3.25 stars. Second last for the month, When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, another Fey fantasy, but mix it with Fourth Wing Dragon companions. Rave is an assassin that should never be caught by the king's guards, but then a bounty hunter shows up. The king of another kingdom steals her from her death and takes her to his lands, and she learns a lot about the world and each other. It's a bit of a slow book one, however not annoyingly slow, building the world and character relationships that will be integral for the entire series. And I gave it 4.5 stars, which as you can see I forget to do with this layout, and so going back to do it now. Lastly, book 5 of the Alabaster Pen series, Shadow Man. With the huge overall plot in this interconnected standalone series, there's not much plot I can talk about, just that Travell is a new prisoner who makes third wheel Byron feel seen. This book was very long, but it also answered a lot of questions about the general plot going on in the prison series, as well as getting to know all the characters a lot more. It was setting up a lot of points to be used in the finale of the series, in among another prisoner romance. I did enjoy it, and it made me wanting for book 6 to know what is going to happen next, so I gave it 3.75 stars despite what is often poor logic and a lot of smut. It's now time to set up the August stats page, which you saw a teaser of because I once again forgot to put in the rating. I'm always flipping back and forth to the previous month because I forget how it's set up. I'm wondering if I should change this up to display even more information or just display it differently. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas of how I could do this. When setting up my pie charts for the month, I realised the good thing about reading exactly 10 books is that the percentages are really easy to calculate. The bad thing about that is that I get lazy figuring out where the different slices should line up, so they end up quite a bit wonky. With an average rating of 3.9 stars this month, my favourite book was The Full Moon Coffee Shop at 4.75 stars, and my least favourite was Kerez at 3.25. Now that all the information is in, it's time to add in the decoration to match how the monthly spread looks. While I did use a new piece down the bottom that I didn't have when I set up the August page, it is within the same theme and worked well for that space. The last step is just sticking down the August stats header, and then we are all done. Time to flip back and do the 2 start of journal pages relevant to the end of the month. On the book bracket, The Full Moon Coffee Shop beat out 3 books, and we had our first tie with it and The Memory Police. Hopefully that doesn't give us a tie at the end of the year, but future me will have to deal with that if it does. Our overall August stats are 10 books, 4,941 pages, 0 5-star reads or rereads, 31 days read, 1 translated book, 4 countries, 2 25 in 2025s, 1 alphabet challenge, and 0 goals completed. With only 4 months left of the year, I really need to work on those goals a lot more if I want to get close to finishing any of them. A quick look at each monthly page to decide on a colour and theme for September. I decided to do a blue cloud nature theme, so I'm just going through my stationery to pick out pieces I might want to use. I liked how August calendar looked using the Tombow Fine tip end to do the outlines, so I've done it again with my 553 blue one. Mikan has now joined for quality control purposes and to try and make me make mistakes by smooching the end of my Tombow pen. He has now decided he needs to do checks from the other side of the desk, somehow managing to remain in the frame this entire time, which is quite impressive. The life of being a cat owner is having to pause what you're doing to move their tail off your keyboard so they don't stop your recording. Now that crisis is averted, I am going through this sticker book to find something that I could use for my usual TBR list area, and I chose this cartoon cloud piece that suits my overall theme well. I really should think things through better because the clouds would have looked so much nicer at the bottom of the page, but now the calendar is in the way of doing that, so I just put them up the top. Mikan is satisfied with his review and has left. Goodbye. Overall, I wish I'd thought this theme through a lot more. However, I was rushing to get this done around multiple work meetings I had this day, and I didn't want to stop mid-spread and come back to it later, which I probably should have just done. Luckily, this blue PET flower roll had some frame-like options, which gave me a good choice for some design to put around the September heading. I also hadn't really planned out my TBR beforehand, so I'm just writing some things I've already started reading for the month and some books on my physical TBR that I really should get to finally. I left the Tombow to dry a little bit before writing on top with this pen, as I find these Muji pens are very prone to smudging when used on wet Tombows or when they're not left to dry for long enough before turning the page or anything. Now, this is the point where I think I went the most wrong with this spread, seeing that I had about 10 minutes left and just sticking down random cloud motif stickers that I had in my collection to get it done before my meeting. I wanted some more small pieces and to tie in the blue flower more, so I cut out the non-kiss cut small pieces on this roll to place around. And this is how my September monthly spread ended up. Like I've said, I don't love how it turned out and will definitely give myself more time and spend more time prepping before I do October next month, but it could be worse. For some reason the lighting has changed a lot to this next clip, but we're going to flip back so that we can look at everything we've done in my reading journal this month. I'm still on the fence about these 4 books with decoration spreads, especially with my limited stationery and time, but I'm going to keep it for now, I think, and see how I go next month. Let me know in the comments what you think of the review spreads and this September spread. If you would like to see more, head over to my last reading journal video, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!